Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. The Whisper of the Stars. In the year 2325, humanity had finally conquered the stars. Interstellar travel was as common as crossing a street, and colonies flourished on distant worlds. The Galactic Federation, a coalition of various alien species, had allowed Earth to join, albeit reluctantly. Humanity was seen as young, reckless, and unpredictable, a species that didn't quite fit into the galaxy's carefully maintained order. On the colony world of Neres, a lush planet on the edge of Federation space, Captain Sarah Monroe found herself facing an unforeseen crisis. Neres had been a peaceful haven for humans and the native Neresians, a species resembling winged reptiles. The colony thrived until the day the Zorlans arrived. The Zorlans, a warlike species known for their brutality, had long been a scourge of the outer worlds. Their massive warships descended upon Neres without warning, obliterating the colony's defenses within hours. Monroe's crew had been on a routine patrol when they received the distress signal. They returned to find the once vibrant colony reduced to smoldering ruins. Monroe, a woman known for her icy resolve, stood on the bridge of the Endurance, her gaze locked on the planet below. "Report," she ordered, her voice betraying no emotion. Lieutenant Mark Rayner, her second-in-command, scanned the data. "We've lost all contact with the surface. The Zorlans have jammed communications. Initial scans indicate heavy casualties. Civilian structures have been targeted." Monroe clenched her fists. The Federation had warned them about the Zorlans, urging humans to avoid conflict. But Monroe wasn't one to back down. The thought of retreat never crossed her mind. Humanity had fought too hard to be cowed by threats. "Prepare to engage," Monroe commanded. The crew hesitated, knowing the Zorlans were vastly superior in numbers and firepower. But they also knew that when Monroe made a decision, it was final. As the Endurance surged forward, the Zorlans immediately responded, their warships swarming like locusts. The first volley of plasma torpedoes struck the Endurance's shields, rattling the ship. Monroe didn't flinch. "Return fire," she ordered. The ship's cannons roared to life, sending streaks of energy toward the enemy. The battle that followed was chaotic, a brutal clash of wills. Monroe's crew fought with everything they had, but the Zorlans were relentless. One by one, the Federation ships that had joined the fight were destroyed, until only the Endurance remained. Despite the hopelessness of the situation, Monroe refused to retreat. She knew that if the Zorlans took Neres, they would move on to Earth next. Humanity couldn't afford to show weakness. But as the Zorlans closed in, Monroe realized they were outmatched. The Endurance's shields were failing, and the ship was on the brink of destruction. "Captain, we can't win this," Rayner said, his voice filled with despair. "We need to retreat, regroup." "No," Monroe snapped. "We hold the line. Humanity doesn't run." As she spoke, an idea formed in her mind, a desperate, reckless plan. The Zorlans had underestimated humanity, seeing them as a nuisance rather than a real threat. But they didn't know the lengths to which humans would go to protect their own. Monroe activated the ship's intercom. "This is Captain Monroe. We're about to initiate a maneuver that will either save us or end us. All non-essential personnel, prepare to evacuate." As the crew scrambled to follow her orders, Monroe turned to Rayner. "I'm going to overload the ship's core and detonate it. The blast should be strong enough to take out the Zorlans. Get to the escape pods." Rayner stared at her in shock. "You'll be killed." Monroe smiled grimly. "That's the job." Before he could protest further, she shoved him toward the door. "Go, Mark. That's an order." With a reluctant nod, Rayner left, leaving Monroe alone on the bridge. As the ship's systems warned of imminent core overload, Monroe took a deep breath. She thought of her family back on Earth, of the people she was protecting, and of the millions of lives that depended on her decision. In her final moments, she wasn't afraid. She was human, and humans didn't give a few asterisks about impossible odds. With a final push of a button, the core overloaded, and the Endurance exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave tore through the Zorlan's fleet, obliterating their ships and saving Neres from annihilation. As the escape pods drifted in the aftermath, the crew looked back at the glowing remnants of the Endurance. Monroe's sacrifice had bought them a victory, but at a tremendous cost. Yet in that moment, as they floated among the stars, they knew one thing for sure. Humanity would never back down. Not now, not ever. Shadows of betrayal. In the aftermath of Captain Monroe's heroic sacrifice, the galaxy was left reeling. News of the battle on Neres spread like wildfire, igniting both fear and admiration. The Galactic Federation, previously dismissive of humanity's presence, now watched with a mix of respect and caution. The Zorlans had been dealt a crippling blow, but the cost had been high. Back on Earth, Monroe's sacrifice was hailed as an act of unmatched bravery. Statues were erected in her honor, and the Endurance became a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit. But not everyone was pleased with how events had unfolded. In the shadowy corridors of power, whispers of discontent grew louder. The Federation Council, an assembly of the most influential species, convened in a secret meeting. They were faced with a dilemma. Humanity had proven they were not to be underestimated, but their reckless actions threatened the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. The Council's leaders, a group of beings who had grown complacent in their dominance, saw humanity as a wild card, dangerous, unpredictable, and difficult to control. Councillor Varlas, a member of the Varelians, a species known for their cunning and diplomacy, spoke first. His voice was smooth, yet laced with underlying menace. This incident on Neres cannot go unpunished. Humanity has shown that they are willing to sacrifice everything, even their own lives, for victory. Such behavior is destabilizing. Across the table, General Corta, a Zorlan representative, growled in agreement. The Zorlans, humiliated by their defeat, were eager for revenge. The humans must be put in their place. They have defied us, and for that, they must pay. But not all the councillors were united in their desire to subdue humanity. Councillor Area, a representative of the Elorians, a peaceful and empathetic species, spoke up in defense of the humans. Captain Monroe saved countless lives, not just human, but Neresian as well. Her actions, while extreme, were born out of necessity. We should commend humanity for their bravery, not condemn them. Varlas's eyes narrowed. Bravery or recklessness, they could have drawn the entire galaxy into war. Area did not waver. They prevented a greater catastrophe. The Zorlans were poised to annihilate an entire colony. If we punish the humans, we send a message that we value our own power over the lives of the innocent. The debate raged on for hours, with no clear resolution in sight. Meanwhile, on the fringes of the galaxy, another force was taking notice of the unfolding events. On a desolate moon, hidden from the prying eyes of the Federation, a secretive organization known as the Syndicate was preparing to make its move. Led by a mysterious figure known only as the Broker, the Syndicate was an alliance of exiled species, pirates, and mercenaries, all united by a common goal: to disrupt the Federation's grip on the galaxy. The Broker, a tall figure clad in dark, flowing robes, watched the chaos unfold through a holographic display. A smile crept across their face. The Federation is divided, and the humans have proven themselves a thorn in their side. This is the perfect opportunity to strike. The Syndicate's agents had already infiltrated key positions within the Federation, and now, with tensions at an all-time high, they began to sow seeds of discord. Misinformation was spread, alliances were broken, and soon it became clear that the fragile peace the Federation had maintained for centuries was beginning to unravel. Back on Earth, the humans were unaware of the brewing storm. Captain Monroe's second-in-command, Lieutenant Mark Rayner, had been promoted to captain and given command of a new ship, the Resolute. The Federation, wary of humanity's growing influence, had assigned the Resolute to a remote sector, far from the major conflicts. Raynor, still haunted by Monroe's death, struggled with his new role. He was a capable officer, but the weight of command felt heavy on his shoulders. The crew of the Resolute was a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, all eager to prove themselves, but Raynor knew that the challenges they would face were unlike anything they had encountered before. Their first mission was supposed to be routine: escort a convoy of supplies to a newly established outpost on the edge of Federation space. But as the Resolute neared its destination, they received a distress signal. "Captain, we're picking up a transmission from a nearby asteroid field," Ensign Kelly reported, her voice tense. "It's faint, but it's definitely a distress signal." Raynor's instincts told him that something was off. The asteroid field was notorious for pirate activity, and the signal could easily be a trap. But he also knew that ignoring a call for help wasn't an option. Monroe had taught him that much. "Set a course for the source of the signal," Raynor ordered, "but keep the shields up and weapons hot. I don't want any surprises." As the Resolute entered the asteroid field, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew watched their scanners intently, searching for any sign of danger. The signal grew stronger, leading them to a small, battered freighter drifting among the asteroids. "It looks like they've been hit," Kelly said, studying the readings. "Life support is failing. We need to act fast." Raynor nodded. "Prepare a boarding party. I'll lead it myself." The boarding party consisted of Raynor, Kelly, and a small team of Marines. They suited up and made their way to the airlock. As they approached the freighter, Raynor couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But they had come too far to turn back now. The freighter's interior was dark and eerily silent. The crew had vanished, leaving behind only signs of a violent struggle. Raynor led his team through the narrow corridors, his senses on high alert. "Stay sharp," he whispered. "Something's not right here." As they reached the ship's bridge, the lights suddenly flickered on, revealing a group of heavily armed figures. The leader, a tall man with a scared face, stepped forward, a cold smile on his lips. "Welcome, Captain Raynor," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "We've been expecting you." Raynor's heart raced as he realized the trap had been sprung. The Syndicate had lured them here, and now they were cornered. But even as the odds turned against them, Raynor's resolve hardened. He wouldn't go down without a fight. With a swift motion, he drew his sidearm and fired the first shot. The fires of rebellion. The first shot fired by Captain Raynor echoed through the freighter's dimly lit corridors, sparking a fierce battle between his boarding party and the Syndicate's ambush team. Blasts of energy lit up the darkness as the two sides exchanged fire, each maneuvering for cover amidst the shattered remains of the ship's interior. Raynor's instincts kicked in, and he directed his team with precision. "Kelly, flank left. Marines, keep up the pressure," he shouted over the din of battle. Despite being outnumbered, Raynor's team fought with the ferocity of those who had nothing to lose. They had been trained for this, to face impossible odds and still find a way to win. Kelly moved swiftly, using the shadows to her advantage. She reached the side of the room and opened fire on the Syndicate soldiers, catching them off guard. The Marines laid down a suppressive barrage, forcing the enemy to duck behind cover. Raynor pushed forward, his mind laser-focused on the objective: survival. The leader of the Syndicate's ambush, the scared man, sneered as he exchanged shots with Raynor. "You're outmatched, Captain," he taunted. "Surrender now, and maybe we'll let you live." Raynor fired back, his voice cold. "Humans don't surrender." The fight was brutal, but Raynor's team gradually gained the upper hand. The Syndicate operatives, expecting an easy victory, found themselves being systematically outmaneuvered. One by one, they fell, until only their leader remained, cornered and desperate. Breathing heavily, Raynor approached the scared man, his weapon trained on him. Who sent you? Why target us? The man laughed bitterly. You think this is just about you? The Federation is crumbling, Captain. There are forces at play here far beyond your understanding. The Syndicate is just the beginning. Before Raynor could press further, the man bit down on something hidden in his mouth. His body convulsed, and within seconds, he was dead. A suicide pill to prevent any interrogation. Raynor cursed under his breath, frustrated by the loss of potential information. Captain, we've secured the ship, Kelly reported, stepping forward. No other hostiles detected, but this place is rigged with explosives. We need to get out of here. Raynor nodded. Fall back to the Resolute. We've done what we can here. As the team retreated to their ship, Raynor's mind raced with questions. The Syndicate was more dangerous than he had anticipated, and their reach extended deeper into the galaxy than anyone had realized. But what disturbed him most was the scared man's claim that the Federation was crumbling. Back on the Resolute, the crew wasted no time in disarming the bombs planted on the freighter. As the last explosive was safely disposed of, Raynor returned to the bridge, where Ensign Kelly was already analyzing the data they had managed to extract from the freighter's systems. Anything useful? Raynor asked as he approached. Kelly's brow furrowed as she examined the data streams. I'm not sure yet, Captain. There's a lot of encrypted information here. But, wait, there's something. She tapped a few keys, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared, highlighting several star systems in red. These systems, Kelly continued, pointing to the map. They're all in regions where the Federation's control is weak. It looks like the Syndicate has been amassing forces in these areas, possibly preparing for a large-scale offensive. Raynor's eyes narrowed as he studied the map. They're planning to strike the Federation where it's most vulnerable. We need to get this information to Federation Command immediately. But as he prepared to send the data, the ship's communication officer, Lieutenant Hayes, turned from his station, his face pale. Captain, we've got a problem. All Federation channels are down. It's like we've been completely cut off. Raynor's stomach dropped. What do you mean, cut off? Are the comms damaged? Hayes shook his head. No, sir. It's not just us. I'm detecting jamming signals across the entire sector. This is coordinated. Someone doesn't want us calling for help. Raynor felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They were alone, deep in Syndicate-controlled space, with vital information that could save countless lives, and no way to deliver it. What's our status, Lieutenant? Raynor asked, turning to his engineer. The ship's still in good shape, Captain, but the warp drive took some damage during the ambush. We're stuck in this sector until we can make repairs. Raynor's mind raced. They needed to act quickly, but without communication, and with their warp drive offline, their options were limited. Get that drive fixed as fast as possible, Raynor ordered. In the meantime, we need to find a way to get this data to the Federation. There must be a relay station nearby we can use. Kelly brought up a schematic of the sector. There's a relay station on the moon of Varlos. It's old, but it should still be operational. If we can reach it, we might be able to send out a signal. Raynor made a quick decision. Set a course for Varlos, and double the security. We can't afford any more surprises. As the Resolute navigated through the asteroid field toward the moon of Varlos, the crew prepared for whatever might come next. Raynor knew they were walking into a potentially deadly situation, but they had no choice. The fate of the Federation, and possibly the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Upon arriving at Varlos, the Resolute descended toward the barren, rocky surface. The relay station was a relic from the early days of space exploration, long abandoned but still functional. As the ship touched down, Raynor assembled a team to accompany him to the station. Stay alert, he warned as they exited the ship. We don't know who, or what, might be waiting for us. The relay station loomed ahead, a tall structure silhouetted against the cold, dark sky. As the team approached, Raynor's sense of unease grew. The station was too quiet, too still. They entered the station's control room, finding it dark and dusty, but surprisingly intact. Kelly quickly set to work, trying to access the communication systems. "It's going to take a few minutes to get this up and running," she said, her voice tense. As she worked, Raynor stood by the entrance, scanning the horizon for any signs of movement. But the silence was broken by a faint hum, a sound that grew louder, more ominous. "Captain, we've got incoming," Hayes called out over the comms. "Multiple ships, heading straight for us." Raynor's heart pounded as he realized the Syndicate had tracked them down. They had mere moments before they would be under attack again. "Hurry, Kelly," he urged, his voice filled with urgency. "We don't have much time." The station's ancient systems whirred to life under Kelly's skilled hands. Just a few more seconds. The hum outside grew into a roar as Syndicate ships descended upon the moon, their weapons charging for an assault. "Got it," Kelly shouted. The signal sent. But before they could celebrate, the first blasts hit the relay station, shaking it to its core. Raynor grabbed Kelly and pulled her toward the exit, back to the ship. Now, the team raced back to the Resolute as the relay station began to collapse behind them. The Syndicate ships fired relentlessly, determined to wipe them out. "Captain, we're under heavy fire," Hayes shouted as the Resolute took off, its shields barely holding against the onslaught. Raynor gritted his teeth. "We've done what we came here to do. Now let's get out of here." The ship's engines roared to life, and the Resolute shot into the sky, dodging the enemy's fire as it raced for the safety of open space. But even as they escaped, Raynor knew this was just the beginning. The Syndicate was no longer in the shadows. They had declared war on the Federation, and humanity was now at the center of the conflict. Raynor's mission had shifted from survival to something far more significant, ensuring that humanity's defiance in the face of overwhelming odds would become the spark that ignited a galaxy-wide rebellion. But as the Resolute sped away from Farlos, one question lingered in Raynor's mind: who within the Federation had betrayed them, and how deep did the conspiracy go? The unyielding flame. The Resolute hurtled through space, the stars streaking by in a blur. On board, Captain Raynor knew time was running out. The Syndicate had declared war on the Federation, and the galaxy stood on the brink of chaos. The encrypted message they had managed to send from the relay station on Farlos contained critical information about the Syndicate's plans, but Raynor had no idea if it had reached its destination. For now, their only hope was to reach Federation Command and warn them in person. As they neared the borders of Federation space, Raynor summoned his senior officers to the bridge. The tension was palpable, but there was a determination in their eyes, a shared understanding that the mission had grown far beyond their original orders. "Status report," Raynor ordered, his voice steady. Lieutenant Hayes, the communication officer, responded first. "Captain, the jamming signals are still in effect, but we're clear of Syndicate-controlled space. Long-range scanners show no pursuit, but we can't be sure how long that'll last." Kelly, who had been instrumental in sending the message, spoke next. "The data we transmitted should reach Federation Command, but without confirmation, we can't know for sure. We need to assume they're still in the dark." Raynor nodded. "Then we proceed to Earth at maximum speed. We can't risk being caught off guard." As the crew worked to optimize their route, Raynor's thoughts were a storm of worry and determination. He knew that the Syndicate's reach extended deep into the Federation. Someone on the inside had betrayed them, and that betrayal could mean the difference between survival and extinction. Days passed as the Resolute raced toward Earth. The crew maintained a constant state of readiness, knowing they could be ambushed at any moment. But it wasn't until they crossed into Federation space that the true scope of the threat revealed itself. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," Hayes announced suddenly. "It's coming from a Federation battle group near the Sol system. They're under attack." Raynor's eyes widened. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, showing a scene of utter devastation. Federation ships were engaged in a desperate battle against a massive syndicate fleet. The enemy ships swarmed like locusts, their weapons tearing through the Federation defenses with brutal efficiency. "This is worse than we thought," Kelly whispered, her face pale. "They're already here." Rayner clenched his fists. "Prepare for battle. We're going in." The Resolute surged forward, its engines burning bright as it entered the fray. The battle was chaotic, with ships of all sizes exchanging fire in a deadly dance. Rayner's crew fought with everything they had, but the odds were overwhelming. As they weaved through the battlefield, dodging enemy fire and returning it in kind, Rayner spotted the flagship of the Federation fleet, the Vanguard, taking heavy damage. Its shields were flickering, and fires raged across its hull. "We need to protect the Vanguard," Rayner ordered. "If she goes down, we lose the entire fleet." The Resolute swung into position, drawing the fire of several syndicate ships away from the Vanguard. Rayner's crew fought with a fierce determination, but it was clear they were outnumbered and outgunned. The syndicate's ships were relentless, their weapons pounding the Resolute's shields until they were on the verge of collapse. But just as it seemed the battle was lost, a new force entered the battlefield. Dozens of ships, emblazoned with the insignia of various alien species from across the galaxy, dropped out of warp and charged into the fight. They were allies, species that had once been oppressed or marginalized by the Federation, now rising to humanity's aid. Leading the charge was a massive battleship, the Aurora, its captain, Underesian named Talek, who had fought alongside Captain Monroe on Neris. He had rallied his people and others who had suffered under the Federation's rule, seeing in humanity's defiance a spark of hope. "Captain Rayner," Talek's voice crackled over the comms, filled with resolve. "We stand with you. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for freedom." The arrival of reinforcements turned the tide of the battle. The combined forces of humanity and their newfound allies pressed the Syndicate's fleet, driving them back. The Resolute and Aurora fought side by side, their crews working in perfect unison, each blow weakening the enemy's resolve. But even as the Syndicate's forces began to retreat, Rayner knew the battle wasn't over. The true mastermind behind the Syndicate, the one who had orchestrated the betrayal within the Federation, was still out there. "Captain Rayner," Kelly said urgently, pointing to the sensor readings. "I'm picking up a massive energy signature from the Syndicate's command ship. It's charging some kind of weapon." Rayner's heart pounded. "We need to take that ship out now." The Resolute and Aurora charged toward the Syndicate's command ship, a behemoth of a vessel bristling with weapons. As they closed in, the enemy ship unleashed its weapon, a devastating beam of energy that sliced through the battlefield, destroying everything in its path. Rayner's instincts kicked in. Evasive maneuvers, get us in close. The Resolute twisted and turned, dodging the deadly beam as it closed the distance. With the Aurora providing cover, Rayner pushed the Resolute to its limits, bringing the ship into striking range. "Target their weapon systems," Rayner ordered. "Hit them with everything we've got." The Resolute's weapons unleashed a barrage of fire, slamming into the Syndicate's command ship. The enemy vessel shuddered under the impact, its weapon systems faltering. But the Syndicate wasn't done yet. As the Resolute delivered its final volley, the enemy ship detonated its core, triggering a massive explosion that threatened to engulf both the Resolute and Aurora. "Brace for impact," Rayner shouted as the shockwave hit. The Resolute was thrown into a tailspin, alarms blaring as systems overloaded. Rayner gripped the edge of his console, fighting to regain control. The ship groaned under the strain, but it held together, emerging from the explosion battered but intact. As the smoke cleared, the battlefield was silent. The Syndicate's fleet had been destroyed, their command ship obliterated. The battle was over, but the cost had been high. Rayner slumped in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. But there was no time to rest. The battle might be won, but the war was far from over. Later, as the Resolute limped back to Earth, The crew gathered on the bridge to assess the situation. The galaxy had changed. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had become something much larger. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity won't back down," Rayner said, his voice steady but filled with the weight of what they had lost. "But this isn't just our fight anymore. We've forged alliances today that will shape the future of the galaxy. Together, we can build something better." Talak, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. "Today, we fought as one. Tomorrow, we rebuild as one." But Rayner knew there was still work to be done. The betrayal within the Federation remained a looming threat, and the Syndicate's remnants would not go quietly into the night. As the crew of the Resolute prepared for the challenges ahead, they knew one thing for certain. No matter the odds, no matter the cost, humanity would endure. And in the end, the galaxy would learn that humans, once dismissed as reckless and unpredictable, were the one force that could never be controlled, never be broken. Because when it came down to it, humans didn't give a few asterisks about impossible odds. They fought, they sacrificed, and they triumphed, not just for themselves, but for the freedom of all. Final lesson. The resilience of the human spirit is a force unmatched by any weapon, any enemy. It's not about never being afraid. It's about standing your ground even when fear tries to overwhelm you. The true strength of humanity lies not in its technology or its might, but in its ability to forge alliances, to inspire hope, and to fight for what's right, no matter the cost. The end.